where do I start? You know, the radio station is a pretty spectacular place, and because there are so many things that happen in studio that it wouldn't even do it justice to try and repeat. It's one of those you've got to be there. And one of my biggest regrets is we've never had a webcam in studio, because there's just some things that happen that are spectacular. From, like, you know, just working the Hats post-game show, and I'm working alongside Melnick and McKenna, and Jacques Martin, who's coaching at the time, says, you know what, we always play hard, and Melnick's going, what was it, Terry? You remember that one? When he said, we always play hard? Was it Jacques Martin or Michel Terry? I don't know what. All right. And you know what? We just started dying of laughter. And the press conference comes to an end, so we're on air, and nobody's saying anything. And we're just dying of laughter. And we got the ops saying in our ear, okay, you're back on now. You're back on, and everyone's just dying of laughter. Or when Connor McKenna actually goes on, and we have certain segments that we have to do, and of course one of them is the out-of-town scoreboard, and every segment that we do has a sponsor attached to it. And the out-of-town scoreboard is brought to you by Tony's Shoes, at which point I do this, and I put them on the counter, and the out-of-town scoreboard is brought to you by Tony's Shoes. Anyway, we just laugh over stupid things, right? We just laugh over very, very stupid things. I remember it was probably about a year ago, right, when some of the head honchos came in from Toronto, and we met in the boardroom at the station, and we had no idea of anything happening, right? Everything was cool. I mean, it was 10 long years it took us to secure the radio rights to the Montreal Canadian broadcast and all that stuff. And you know, they just came in and they explained what was going on, and it looked like we were done. We were toast. And I got to tell you, it was a pretty difficult day. And when I got the news, I think I went on air like 10 minutes after. And I think it was like 9:30 in the morning or whatever it was. And at 10 o'clock I was on the air, or it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and I went back on air at 10:30. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. And it was pretty tough, because the radio station is not only a job for us, it's life, it's our day, as Robin mentioned and the others mentioned, it's what makes us happy and all that stuff. So it was a very, very, very difficult day. And we knew that it looked like, you know what, it was going to take a miracle to save us. And we had to do something to turn it around. We had to do something in terms of, you know, our programming, our listeners, our segments, our creativity. I mean, we just had to do something that was unbelievably awesome to be saved. So I started to sing. Make no mistake, my singing saved the radio station. Let's put our cards on the table. You know, all kidding aside, you know, thanks. Only female to ever tell me she doesn't love my voice. Now you know why I continue to sing. But anyway, just picking up on the story that, and I'm going to make it very quick because I don't want to bore you, but all my life I wanted to be a professional soccer player, but I wasn't good enough. So that was out of the realm of possibility. But if I wasn't going to be a soccer player, I wanted to talk about soccer, I wanted to talk about hockey, I wanted to talk about sports, I wanted to talk with coaches, I wanted to talk with athletes. This is what I wanted to do. And I used to go to bed at night listening to the late Ted Stevens, who, in my opinion, was the absolute best at what he did. And there were a couple of people in the business that I admired a lot. I thought Ted Stevens was the best at what he did, and the reason why I called Mitch as often as I did is because I thought Mitch was the best at what he did. And growing up, I mean, my friends would go out, they'd go hang out at the park, they'd go out with girls, they'd go clubbing, they'd go this, they'd go that, and I would stay home and I would listen to radio. So I didn't have much of a life compared to them, but this is what I love, this is what made me happy. And there were certain things along the way that gave me some hope, and that was, I knew that when I used to call Melnick's show, and let's just say that the game would end at like 10 o'clock at night, and he would go to the phone calls right away, and it was so difficult to get a line, so I knew that the lines were absolutely jammed. there's 9 or there's 10 people on hold, and finally I get a line, and once I get a line, it seemed like within a minute I was on the air. And that's a sign that you know what, the guy who's the host, he wants to go to some of his better callers right away because, he wants to accept good calls, he wants to create topic and all that stuff for discussion. So that was kind of cool. So, you know what, Mitch, without knowing he was helping me, really gave me some hope. Number 2 was, I remember calling Ted Keevan one night, and we had a conversation, and I used to tape all of his shows, and I used to listen to them over and over and over again, and I used to tape all my calls and all that stuff. And I remember going to bed late at night, and I think, the last half an hour of his show, he talked about blue bonnets and Tropicana orange juice or something. And room 321 was a whirlpool of Miss LA and Shinois and
big stress of
right? Anyway, so he went on and he rambled and just rambled, and it seemed like he never talked about sports, but he was awesome because he rambled and he never knew what he was going to say next or what he was going to do next. And I remember that the show was coming to an end. It was probably going to end at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and there I am. I'm like 14 or 15 years old, and I got my Walkman on in bed, and I'm falling asleep, but I'm still up because I want to just listen to the show in its entirety. And I remember that at the end of the show, he says, and before we go, I just want to mention Tony and LaSalle, you call often, and I want to tell you something. You have the goods to be in this business. And he ended the show like that.
Wow.
Screw you.
Yeah. You're gone. You're gone.
That was like the most inspiring thing to me ever. I mean, a guy who I just idolized. I just loved his show, and he told me that he thought that I could pull it off. At which point, you know what? I was talking to my parents, and I told them that this is what I want to do and what I wanted to do. And being the good, supportive, old-fashioned Italian parents that I have, they told me you have no chance. You're an Italian guy from LaSalle. You're never going to get in that business. Forget it. Like, we don't know anybody. Luckily, I didn't listen to my parents, and as I kept on calling one show after another, at one point, Peter McGuire was on the air, and I remember he was doing a show from Secret Victor from Tremblant. And so I reached out to him, and I said, you know what, I looked him up on the internet. I found his number. I called him, and I don't remember if I ended up calling him in Tremblant. I think I did. I think I found his number there. And I called him, and he picked up the phone, and I said, this is what I want to do. And he said, well, just keep on doing what you're doing, and just keep plugging away. And anyway, one thing led to another. I met Wayne Hughes, the general manager of the radio station, at a golf tournament, of all things, and we hit it off. And at one point, I was doing something else for a living, and he sent me a note. He said, do you want to be a star? And I said, what do you mean? And one thing led to another. Sean Starr and I ended up hosting a Montreal Canadiens post-game show that wasn't very good, and our boss continued to have confidence in us because we were working for free. But anyway, that's for about 5 months. Anyway, look, I've already taken up a lot of time, but there are a couple of stories that are so cool and so funny that I want to tell you about, and some of them feature Rod's dad, if you can, Ron Francis. Yeah, we got a Ron Francis story. You ready for it? Well, here I am, and I'm hosting a show with Ron Francis. I think we're hosting the morning show together. And I had information that, of course, Larry Robinson and his group wanted to have his jersey retired for the longest time. And Larry had since lost his mom. And I believe he had maybe even lost his brother at that point, or maybe not. But anyway, I got word that Larry Robinson's dad was ill. So, we were talking about shame on the Montreal Canadiens for not retiring Larry Robinson's jersey. And I said, you know what? I said, Ron, you know what? It'd be great if they could retire Larry Robinson's jersey before something happens to his dad. And while I'm saying this, Ron looks at me and he says, go ahead. So I'm looking at him and I'm like, what are you nodding about? So he looks at me. So I said, "Tony, you're dead." And he says, "Yeah, he's dead." I said, "Larry Roberts is dead? He's a twin!" He says, "Oh, I read about it in the paper, and it was in the Suburban. I don't know exactly when it happened, but this was months ago. I read about it and this and that." So anyway, I'm like, "Oh man, I can't believe his mom passed away and now his dad passed away, and they haven't retired his seriously, and oh man." So after every show we leave emails and we send out an email and leave some clips and talk about our previous shows. So I go home and I do what I gotta do, and I was gonna place a phone call out to Larry's agent and say, "Man, I can't believe that happened," or whatever, but I put it off and I had a few things to do. Anyway, I'm on the road, and I'm driving home, and I'm listening to Malik in the afternoon, and he's,
Bonsoir, Senor. Pierre Boivin. Shame on you, Montreal Canadiens, and Larry Robinson's dad is dead, and this is...
Anyway, he's going on a rant. He's killing everyone in his organization. He is absolutely destroying them. So I said, "Shit, that's what I have to do today. I gotta call Larry's friend and his agent, Donnie Cape." So I picked up my mobile and called Donnie Cape, and I said, "Donnie, Tony Marinaro." He said, "Hey, Tony, how are you?" He said, "I'm pretty good." And I said, "Hey, listen, I gotta tell you, man, I'm sorry to hear about Larry's dad passing away. I mean, that's just awful." He said, "Passed away? I was with him just half an hour." I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "How did he die?" I said, "I don't know, you tell me how did he die. I just woke this morning and he passed away 6 months ago." He says, "You're crazy, I just dropped him off at his house 20 minutes ago." So I called the radio station, and I think it was Rod that answered the phone. And I said, "Well, yeah, well, we're on the air, Tony." I said, "I know." I said, "Listen." So we're going to break. They're going to break, and I hear Rod tell Mitch, and all of a sudden, on the other end of the phone, I hear, That was a pretty funny moment. So you know what? He's cutting me off.
So we're gonna get Tony drunk on crap, and he's gonna